We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Imagine what would have happened if we hadn't attracted the magic we had back when we couldn't fathom. Life is a fantasy, not with the vanity, not the way it was back then. So I grab my pen and write it down like a scripture. Mr. Mystic, making hits for the misfits. The show where you don't know what you don't know when it's on again with Sean and Jonathan.
Welcome to Metamystics, where you don't know what you don't know. Today we have a very awesome second-time guest. It's actually been quite a while. The first time we had you on was episode 42. I believe I was still over at Christie's shop whenever all that shit was going down. But yeah, man, it's good to finally get you back on. Welcome back to the show, the Astrology Wizard.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. So I was very interested in getting back with you guys. And I don't know. I thought we would do an episode before now. It took us a while.
It did take a little while. Yeah. I mean, you know what, though? To be honest, I feel like time is just speeding up like crazy. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that. Maybe it's the solar flares, or maybe this is, I don't know, maybe we're in the season of Aquarius. I'm not exactly sure what the hell is going on, but it seems like the hours are just flying by. Like there's just not enough time to do everything.
So I have a theory on that I can't say it's my own theory. I heard it on TikTok, and someone was saying that the more present you stay, the more time disappears, because when you're present, there is no time. So whenever you feel like you're moving through your day and like time just completely goes away, it's because you've been staying so present in what you're doing. You're staying in that flow state, and it just makes time move quickly.
Wow, that's probably the best answer I could even think of.
It sounded good in my head because I was like, that makes sense, because I do be staying present, so.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting to even bring that up, too, because I'm learning a lot. I'm actually reading this book. Dude, it is freaking fascinating. I can't talk enough about it, but it's by this guy. His name is Itzhak Bentov. He's passed away. I think he died in like 78 or 79 or something like that. But he wrote a couple of books, and this one that I'm reading is called Stalking the Wild Pendulum on the Mechanics of Consciousness. And he goes into, just time in general and everything. And basically what he's saying, the old adage of like, time flies when you're having fun, time really just melts by whenever you're at work doing something you don't want to do. And so he's trying to almost like discern the conscious and the subconscious mind, and then also discerning the objective and the subjective mind, or subjective reality and objective reality. And he's kind of just saying like, look, sure, objective reality, I'm sure, yes, it exists. We all kind of experience this world, and, when we get in a car together, we're both in the car together, that's objective, right? But what he's kind of leading into is that the true reality is your personal subjective reality. And maybe whenever you're, staying more in that, which it kind of leans a little credence to you're saying that the more you are present, the more time goes by a little faster. And I think that the more you're kind of looking at things subjectively and just seeing it as like an individual experiencing rather than kind of grouping yourself in with the rest of the world, man, time does seem a little bit different in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the concept of me and you sitting in the same room. Well, we're not in the same room. That room is different for me than it is for you. You see your perception of that room completely different than what my perception is. So, that adds into the layer of your reality is only yours. You view people differently. You experience the world differently. You experience life differently in general. And you can see that with astrology. That's one of the reasons I enjoy astrology, is because you can see based off of someone's rising sign how they present themselves to the world. And then you can see how they interact with the world and how the world interacts back with them.
Interesting. So let me think. So I always get all the signs confused. I know the sun sign and moon sign, and the third sign is typically your rising, right?
Uh, the first sign on the horizon is your rising sign. So whenever you take the snapshot of your chart, whatever sign is sitting on the ascendant. So say for me, I have a Leo rising. That changes all the other signs around the chart because it's just going to start with Leo and then it's going to continue on all the way around the chart. A natural wheel, which is an Aries rising, would be the normal, everyone would see it as Aries at the beginning, all the way back around to Pisces. So it just depends on how the rising sign is the first thing that really sets your chart for the focus, because your rising degree is the beginning of who you are, in a sense.
Okay, so ascendant and rising are the same thing.
Yes.
Okay, I kind of thought so, but I didn't want to sound like a total idiot by just assuming it. I'm still trying to learn a lot of it, and to be honest, dude, there's so many like really cool things out there that we've been learning over here on the show, and it's hard to just pick one and hammer on that. Like I love talking about tarot. I love talking about all forms of divination. I love talking about near-death experiences and CIA programs, and you know what I mean? And it's like you're trying to really soak it all in. For one, especially for the show, we want to try and bring new information as often as possible, just so people stay interested and entertained and educated and all this kind of stuff. All while, I'm learning it as we go too, but yeah, so astrology is something that, you know what? There's been a huge debate on this. And so I don't know, are you familiar with the guy his name is Santos Bonacci?
Yes.
Okay, so we had him on the show a couple of months ago. Fascinating guy, right?
Yes, I'm very interested as to how you got in touch with him, because I found out about Santos Bonacci in the beginning of my awakening, so like 2022. And that's when I started learning about cell salts and all those astrotheology and how he relates astrology and the Bible. And
dude,
I've been so interested in him. And then I found out the other day, whenever I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw him pop up on your show, and I went, "You motherfucker." I said, "How in the hell did you get in touch with that guy?"
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's that's just the strange like fucking simulation we live in, because supposedly there have been hundreds and thousands of people trying to reach out to him for a show, but I think I just nagged him enough and he eventually caved in, to be honest with you. I don't know why he agreed.
Amazing,
but
bro.
It was really, really good, and dude, that's like a bucket list check off the checklist, right? Like it was so awesome. And I guess the reason why he doesn't do as many shows anymore is because he talks about like he has this itch, like he's just always so itchy, and for some reason, and I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but and it's so strange because it's not like a rash or anything anywhere. It might be psychological for all I know, but for some reason, it's like whenever he's real nervous, he gets real itchy. It's almost like a tick, because whenever he starts getting comfortable, he goes, "See, the itching went away. Now that I'm comfortable, I'm in this conversation." I was like, dude, that is strange. So anyway, that's what he said, that he doesn't do as many shows anymore because of that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So just the amount of information that he can provide is phenomenal, just to have a conversation with someone like that, So as soon as I saw, like, kudos, dude. I was like, I feel like you deserve it, because the rabbit holes that y'all be going down, man, y'all deserve to have people on there that can spread that information. And when I saw him get on there, I was like, that's a good sign for you,
Yeah, it felt like it, man. And I tell you what, he was up there, like, talk about bucket list, like, guests that we want to have on the show. Like, he was top 3, and he was in good company with Terrence Howard and Jim Carrey. Like, it was Terrence Howard, Jim Carrey, and then your boy. And I was like, holy shit, he finally reached out. But yeah, it was a really good conversation. I don't expect that conversation to happen again. That's like, finding a needle in a haystack. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic, very knowledgeable. But that leads me to my question. He was saying, and I made a couple of clips about this and put it out on social media, and people went up in flames arguing, either arguing for or against his point. And his point is that I asked him, I was like, all right, so which astrology in your mind is the truer or more accurate or the right, or, you know, if there is a correct astrology? And I was like, between tropical and sidereal. And he said, or sidereal / Vedic, whatever you want to call it. I think they're subtly different. But either way, he goes, oh, dude, it's tropical, a tropical astrology. He goes, everybody's on this kick right now because there's, you know, they believe that there should be 13 months in the calendar for the 13 moons, and it should be 28 days. And he goes, no, people are getting it confused. People believe that the constellations are the stars themselves, but that's not the correct term. He goes, it's what is on the ecliptic.
Mm.
And that's how you determine, you know, your sun sign, and how you read the stars is based on the ecliptic, which is the sun's path.
Yeah, and he's correct. As far as I've found, that works pretty accurately. That tropical is the most accurate. At the same time, I do like to play with sidereal. So I will go look at my chart in sidereal to see how accurate it plays with my chart. And sidereal isn't too far off as far as looking at the natal chart. I haven't really applied a lot of transits to it or anything like that to dig into it more. It's just, it's a different like lens of looking at me through. And the more I learn about me, the more I can look at myself through that lens and see how it fits and how it works. It's not something that I want to use all the time or try to read for someone else on, because I feel like those are the layers that are deeper than on the surface. Because I found out a lot more about me in the past couple of years doing astrology. And then whenever I started realizing I had a lot more traits from other signs that played into my life, and I honed it in on sidereal. Whenever I poured it up sidereal, I could tell that it was the Scorpio that was standing out.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so it was interesting to find, because I was like, it makes sense. I see it now. I mean, after digging so deep into who I am and how I act, whenever I put it in sidereal, I can see it. It shows up in both ways.
Yeah, it does. And that's what's so, you know, striking about it is that, you know, for my whole life, I've, you know, over Western astrology has always been tropical. And it's, you know, a little bit more recent that people are starting to get interested into sidereal, maybe over the past 5 to 10 years or so, at least as far as the people that I'm aware of. But I've always, you know, in tropical, I'm a Taurus. And then I looked over and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Cause I've always, you know, maybe subconsciously just agreed that I am a Taurus, right? You know, my wife is like, oh, you're the most stubborn motherfucker I ever met. I'm like, okay, maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe it's just an excuse. I'm not sure either. But then I look over at sidereal, and you know the what are they called? The fucking zodiacs will change, and all of a sudden I'm a Aries now, and I started looking into that, and I was like, oh, I do see aspects of Aries like within myself, and then I started talking to, you know, rest in peace to our homeboy, Optimistic Banks. I know that, like, I bring him up every single episode because I just don't want anybody to ever forget about him. Like, one of the coolest dudes, most knowledgeable mystics I've ever talked to in my life. But anyway, you know, I was talking to him and he goes, dude, the reason why people argue about sidereal and tropical is because, you know, they identify with different signs and different seasons and different aspects about themselves. But the truth is that you're all of the signs anyway. All of the signs are actually in you. Even if they're not in your main list of things, every single one of the planets is inside you.
Yes.
You identify with that too?
Yes, that is 100% correct. Speaking of, it's been like 2 years since I met you. Have you ever gotten your birth time?
Birth time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can pull up your chart and look at it, and I can show you what I'm talking about, how it plays in.
Okay, yeah, that'd be a fun thing to do. Yeah, I'm cool with sharing all that over the air too. Fuck it. Somebody wants to steal my astrology chart, that's fine.
We don't have to go too deep. We can just like keep it simple, but I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay. So what do you need?
All right. So all right, birthday?
May 8th, 1990.
What time?
5:20 p.m.
And what city?
in Lake Havasu City, Arizona.
Lake Havasu, Arizona.
Shout out.
All right.
How do you spell
Lake for lake, and then Havasu is Havasu. Supposedly they got some secret society down there that I just recently found out about, and I'm like,
I just recently found that too. I was like, interesting.
Yeah, like Brotherhood of the Snake or some shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody they're wrong or they're making it up. I just never seen it.
Let's see. Let's just start with your Libra rising. You come off to the world as somebody who has a good style. You like to dress nice. You like to, take care of the way you look. You like to present yourself to the world in that manner of, I take care of myself. Also, you're very loving and you're very caring the way you present yourself. You're, somewhat charismatic at the way that people see you as charming. So
okay.
that's Libra rising playing into just your appearance to the world. Now you also see the world from a Libran aspect of justice. You believe in right and wrong, and you don't like it when someone gets away with doing the wrong thing. You see how you play on that, both sides of that is you see the world that way and the world sees you that way.
And I would say that, that's maybe I try to judge less outwardly. I feel like I judge so much more inwardly now, maybe for past mistakes or even current mistakes. I'm just like, there's something inside of me that is just like, I guess you're right about like the Libra scale inside of me that I'm just like trying to be as introspective and as almost like fair inside myself.
Yeah, I mean, you see the world as everything has to be fair. So you try to treat yourself as fair as you can. You try to treat others fair, and you don't like to see others mistreated. So if you see someone else getting mistreated, you're going to stand up for the little person. That's the Libra way. That's Libra sons are like this in the way they express themselves in their personality. You're just like this because that's how you see the world.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's a good read right there. And that you got all that just by looking at my rising sign.
Yeah, that's just the rising sign. And then to add more layers to it, you start digging into where your planets are, where your sun is, where your moon is, stuff like that. So do you know your top three that you already had in your chart?
Yeah, so Taurus moon or Taurus sun, Scorpio moon, and then Libra rising.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to make sure that what you already thought your chart was, that I was accurate on it. Because if I'm going to say you got a Scorpio moon and we got a lot we could talk about because I got a Scorpio moon.
Hell yeah, dude.
It makes a lot of sense.
That's a sketchy sign to have in the moon, I think, right?
It is. And the funny part is yours is on the same degree as mine.
Really?
I believe, or 1 degree before. I think my sun's at 9, yours is at 9, your moon's at 9. So my moon's at 10 conjunct my Saturn, if I'm not mistaken. So you're like 1 degree off of my moon. You also have a Pluto in Scorpio. Mine's in the 0 degrees Scorpio. Yours is at 16.
You know what's funny is that I always try and do a little bit of research before I get a guest on, and I never really want to sound too slow whenever we're talking about whatever the topic is for the show. And so I was like, all right, let me try and get this little chart right here. I found a chart of basically describing what each planet means inside of your chart, right? And so it describes all the different planets, and then it goes into Chiron, Lilith, midheaven, south node, and north node. Is this normal, like to have these different aspects on there like that? Like, I feel like I don't remember seeing Lilith on there.
Yeah, Lilith is just an asteroid that people use. It's like Chiron. Chiron's an asteroid. We use it because it can be significant in your chart. Once you start learning mythology and how these archetypes actually play out in your chart, you can see how they affect that area of your life. Like that energy that you're working with in that area of your life can like be used in a negative or a positive, just like any other planet. So I'm saying, so Lilith being the dark feminine, she's usually the repressed side of you that you don't feel like you can express because people see it as being too much.
Okay. Yeah, it says
Yeah.
right on this little chart that I had, it says Lilith is your untamed darkness. Whatever that means.
Yeah. And it's usually like something that either like a lot of it is like promiscuity, just things that aren't quite accepted by society. It could be somewhat of an attitude, like the way you express yourself could be a little forceful. There's a lot of different things that Lilith can just throw into your life, and when you understand that's where it's at and that's what it can cause, you can keep a check on it. It just kind of gives you guidance instead of saying, "Oh, I'm just an asshole and I can just be mean all the time." And it's saying, "Oh, I know I can be if I just choose to cool back. I can't pull back."
Right. You know what? I've always been so curious about like how are people applying, almost like mental attributes per individual based on a planet in a certain position. Like where did that originally come from? Do you know where it all started and why? I mean, I could imagine that people maybe probably started at the sun and moon sign or something like that. Maybe it grew from that. I'm not sure exactly about how it all started, but how exactly do people like just start like adding attributes to what each planet means? That's the part that always kind of caught me up.
So each planet has their own attributes. Now, when you take that planet and you put it in a sign, it gives those attributes a costume in a sense. And then you put them in a house, and that tells you the area of life where that energy is going to be playing out. Makes sense?
Okay, so I'm just trying to imagine exactly. I don't even know how long astrology's been around, but I'm pretty sure the Egyptians were messing with it, right?
I've,
Or is that more
I've
Greek?
I've heard different theories. I've heard someone say pretty much from the beginning of time, astrology has been around in some way, form, or fashion, because tracking days and all that, like the ancients used turtle shells to track the months and the days, and like it was wild how they used animal shell to do astrology basically, and to keep track of the days and to watch the sun and the moon, and like to know that there's 28 days in a moon cycle. They knew that, and it worked perfectly. Like you can't make it up, man. Like this is real. If they were doing it off a turtle shell, it's been here since the beginning of time, pretty much.
No, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm just like, I get a little curious about this. Like, all right, so they're like, okay, it looks like that star constellation almost looks like a lion. We'll call it Leo. And if we're calling it Leo, what is going on in our subjective reality as it pertains to the individual? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that that's how they started just applying each attribute to each constellation whenever it was in a certain alignment in the sky? Like, did they apply it, internally, and then they come up with, oh yeah, your moon sign is your emotional self. I get it now. Like, is it kind of like that?
Well, I don't think it like initially began that way, because you have to think about it from their aspect. They didn't have jobs. They had a lot of free time. They had a lot of time to be creative and to think and to recognize patterns and things like that. So they're sitting there watching the night sky, and they can sit there and make those shapes out. Well, eventually they started telling stories and having drawings and sharing this with their siblings and children and grandchildren, and carrying it on. And astrology started growing from that, just storytelling and explaining what things happen and what they mean. And like the Bible is based off of that. That's one of those books that is written based off of astrology to tell the stories of how astrology took place. So when you look at it from that aspect, it began with word of mouth and then turned into books and then religions and things like that. So it's, to me, I feel like astrology has been here since the beginning.
Yeah, it would have to, because it does seem like just about every single religion out there is made up of, stories from the stars in the skies. And that's why I always found astrotheology like mind blowing every time. It's like, what are the odds that are you trying to tell me that the same story that is being portrayed in the sky at night with all the different stars and all the different planets that are lined up on the ecliptic, that actually happened in real life to real people, I don't know. I mean, maybe it could. Some people will look at astrology, maybe they're religious, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay. Well, they'll look at it in a sense of like, oh, well, this only confirms that the story is real because it's also being told in the stars." You know, how do you look at that? Do you believe that it's like, do you think that astrology came first and then people started coming up with stories and that's how religions were started, or were they both happening at the same time?
In a sense, they were both happening at the same time, although a lot of mythology and the stories that were passed down about the archetypes of how these planets interact with the society and how the moon cycle fluctuates through a human and the cycles of water and how everything flows together. I feel like astrology was the baseline for it. And then someone took something from astrology and began creating these different facets of ways of thinking and said, hey, I can create this religion and we can create this massive cult and I can take over the world, because that's pretty much what they're trying to do.
And you would be right most of the time because the story is always told in the stars. And so you're kind of just like, oh, this is going to happen because, oh, that's the constellation. It's coming around this time. And, you know, and a lot of people will just equate astrology, especially like people who are kind of just onlookers, not really paying too much attention to it. They'll look at it as, oh, that's really cool. It's pretty close. But, you know, I think that people are just still reading their fucking horoscopes. And I'm like, you know, like you can't go to zodiac.com and look up May 8th, 1990 without a date or a location. You know, in order for it to be specific to you, you need all that information in there. And then you need somebody who's actually good at it to really interpret it for you. And that's why I've always liked what you do, because you have such a great understanding of astrology. And I'm just like trying to be here soaking it up like a sponge. Hopefully it can get through this thick head.
Well, there's so much more that can be done with astrology than horoscopes. So like whenever they turn Western astrology into the horoscope part of the newspaper, they really did a disservice for the science and the ability to read the stars. And they took away the right from the people. Basically, they started hiding it basically and saying, yeah, I don't need to do that. Yeah, I don't need to understand how that works. You know, so for us to be able to get it back and to start applying a new modern way of thinking into it and a lot more understanding of how we're experiencing life now is powerful for our generation.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of people are starting to really give it a little bit more credence. You know, like maybe some people didn't really take it all that serious, but then you get somebody that actually does like a good chart for you. And it's like, oh my God, you feel naked. It's like somebody is reading you like a book and there's nothing you can cover. And, you know, that maybe they'll learn all the positive aspects about it, but then they'll learn a lot of the negative about you. And they're like, oh, I got to keep my distance from you now. You know, it's kind of like, it's strange like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because like I can do that. Like people walk in and they're like, I'll ask them something about, you know, astrology, and they'll just be like, you know, never have one. I don't know. Like, what's it about? And I said, well, what's your birthday? And they'll give me their birthday and I'll run their numbers real quick and just give them some quick numerology facts just to get them interested and be like, how do you know all that fast? Like, you know, it's like, oh, I can tell you much more. We just got to go a few layers deeper. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. And man, it's just so unfortunate that I feel like, you know, a lot of people are coming into their spiritual understanding about the nature of themselves and the nature of reality and the relationship between the two. But I just feel like there are so many people that are just totally blind to a lot of this stuff. And it's like, okay, maybe that's just a coincidence or whatever. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm starting to look at reality and allowing it to talk to me. You know what I mean? And through the signs and through the symbols and through the numerology, it's like, how do you know if you're doing what you should be doing, you know, whatever you incarnated here for, if you're not paying attention to the signs? There was this guy, and I can't remember what big company he was a part of. I just read this. He goes, yeah, I have no introspection. None. He's like a big CEO of some, I can't remember if it wasn't like Facebook, but it was something, maybe it was LinkedIn, something like that. And this guy said, I have no introspection. And now maybe a lot of people would hear that and they'd be like, oh, well, that's odd. You know, you don't have a subconscious, like you don't, convince yourself of things back and forth. Like, like you're not. And he's like, no, I know what I need to do and I do it. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that explains why you're a billionaire, but you have no introspection. So I don't even know how you appreciate it.
So I would ask him who his handler is.
Yeah, for real.
Because everyone has an introspection. Everyone has the ability to stop and say, is this a good idea or is this a good idea? At least have two options. Because, I mean, one of the spiritual goals that I found is to see the world from a non-dual state. Most people can at least only see the world in a dual state. There's always a good or bad. There's always a judgment upon a decision, whether it's good or bad, a person, whether they're good or bad. Everything is based off of duality. So one of the spiritual practices I found was to try to observe the world from a subjective point of view and not judge everything. Instead of seeing it as a duality, just see it as it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's interesting just to take notice of what is happening in your reality. And it could just be something as simple as just noticing the numerology and whatever and I think, and this is where I get a little strange because I know that there's like occult staples whenever it comes to numerology, but I also like to apply my own meanings to certain numbers as well. I feel like it can be a personal thing. Maybe somebody sees, like, all right, our buddy Electro Nick, he always sees 444. I hardly ever see it. So whenever he sees it on a daily, regular basis, he's like, okay, all right, I needed that confirmation. Thank you. Like, and that's like, I just identifies with that. And I'm like, all right, well, what's mine? And I started really thinking about it. And I love 111 and I always see the 222s and the 333s and such. But, my number that I feel like I've been associating, just, I don't even know what I feel about it. It just kind of reminds me of like my family, I think, is whenever I see 1, 2, 3, 4. And because there's 4 of us and I don't know, that's just whenever I see it, I'm like, okay, I'm doing what's right by the family and stuff like that. But do you have a certain a certain numerology number that you see and it's like, all right, that's me kind of deal? If I don't even know if that's a weird question.
No, 7. I follow 7s, and I like the number 777. And numerologically, if you add it up, it's a 3. So, like for me, I like the number 7 because it's my life path number, and I also like the number 3 because number of communication. It's one of my favorite things to do is to talk and to have interesting conversations with people. And being a life path 7, the ability to have intelligence conversations it's like a daily thing for us. Like if we can't have intelligent conversation with someone, then we would rather just be alone.
Yes.
So we can have an intelligent conversation with ourselves.
Yeah,
pretty much, because we're just going to be in our head the whole day. That's all it is. So
dude, I used to have this history teacher, shout out to Mr. Rose back in Pennsylvania, but he used to always be talking to himself all the time, and we would like kind of make fun of him on some real shit. And, we were, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade. And we'd be like, Mr. Rose, why do you talk to yourself so much? And he goes, well, it's the only way I can find intelligent conversation. I'm like, damn, all right, shots fired. All right.
Can't argue with his logic, man. I feel that way. Like I've worked at different places where I would come home at the end of the day and just be happy to be home so I could be by myself. Just to go sit alone and not have to deal with people from work. And that's not a way to live, man.
No, it's you want to be a little active within, anytime you go somewhere. I'm always trying. I mean, I don't go anywhere, to be honest with you. Maybe I'll go out to the store and pick up some groceries, or maybe we'll go out to the mall and with the kids and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm just like, I really just try to not talk to as many people as humanly possible. There are some people like out there that they want to talk to everybody and hey, how are you? My aunt was that way. She'd be in line waiting at Walmart and just spark up a conversation. By the time they got to the line, at the end of the line, they were best friends and they had each other's phone numbers. I'm like, I kind of wish I could be like that. But anyway, all right, let's get back to this astrology. This is what we came here for. What's next on the path here?
So, back to how we were talking about your chart, how it plays out. So the analogy I'm going to give you is the houses are the stage that you're playing in. So first house is the house of self. Second house is house of money, self-worth, things like that. Third house is communication, siblings, short-term communication, Gemini house. And so if you think about where the natural signs are, those are pretty much going to control those houses. And you use that as the stage. So it's the area of life that you're performing. And then the planet is the actor that is involved in it. And the sign is a script that planet is following. It's like the costume that it wears and it performs that script,
Okay. All right. I'm following.
So with your moon being in Scorpio in your first house, I'm actually quite interested in how that expresses itself through your identity, because like mine's in my third house. Mine is communication. Mine is from growing up around narcissistic abuse and being told, shut up, you can't talk, go sit down and be quiet kind of thing, where I couldn't express myself as a child. So how did that express itself in your first house? Was it more like physical or was it more mental? Because the Scorpio moon is going to have a betrayal trauma and that kind of trauma around it,
Yeah, I would say, my dad's gotten a lot better, but he used to be a drunk asshole. And I love my dad. He's making great steps and becoming a better person and everything. But man, yeah, I feel that same exact way. It was always don't speak unless spoken to. Every time he would always want me to go outside and work on cars with him, which I was like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. I would love to learn how to change brakes and oil and you know what I mean? Like just carburetors and what have you. And every time I would ask him a question, it was like, oh, God, just watch. It's like, I just want to know what you're doing. I want to know how it's done. And it was just like never any patience for anything. And so, you kind of just got used to not even speaking up because every time you spoke, you were getting yelled at or whatever.
Yeah. So I feel like he had this thing where he didn't really want you to ask questions or anything. He just wanted you to be present with him. Like he didn't understand how to have communication like that with you. It was more of you being present with him gave him what he was needing, which was the inclusion. You see what I'm saying? The father and son inclusion of you're with me, so you're here. And he just didn't understand how to communicate those other things.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that maybe he just didn't have a lot of patience. That's what I always thought.
Well,
he was just terrible with patience.
Yeah, it's just with your Saturn being in retrograde, for you, it was an internal thing. It was an internal self-reflection of your dad. So everything that you saw was him being internal, not expressing. So that's how you have gotten to perceive him. So that's kind of how you grew up, is going internal and trying to figure it out for yourself instead of communicating and being vulnerable with people.
Dude, that's so funny you say that. I remember as a little kid, so we always knew that, so me and my brother shared a bedroom growing up, and we were always like shocked every single time he opened the door because of course we were probably always doing something that we shouldn't have been doing, right? Whether it was playing video games or eating inside the room or wrestling too hard or whatever, right? And so we almost like, me and my brother, we almost like developed this sense to be able to notice when he's on the way without ever hearing any footsteps. Like we had an older house, so you could hear footsteps, but he would like creep his way up to the door so that he can catch us in the action, right? And so we were like, all right, we got to try and, almost try and see if there's another way. And so we thought about like, tripwires or whatever, just being stupid kids. But one thing that I feel like I developed is that every time he started to get close to me, no matter where, I always, it's like I heard his energy approaching without footsteps or him talking or breathing or anything like that. It was almost like like the ions in the air changed and I could hear it. And that's, man, that's going all the way back there.
It's almost like you were the opposite ends of a magnet and you were repelling. So whenever he got close to you, you could feel the tension starting to rise.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Usually every time he was around, he was the enforcer, you know, like, and that's why I always thought it was so strange, you know, in the moving down to the South, it's like everybody's mom is the enforcer and the dads are the cool one. I'm like, I wish, dude, like my mom was the nicest, sweetest angel, still is. But like my dad, dude, it was like, he was the hard one, you know, and looking back now as an older man, or, you know, man-ish, I can learn to appreciate that. But man, back in the day, I was scared of him big time.
Yeah, and you have that ability because Scorpio moon feels energy so strongly. So like I had that when I was in my room and I could feel them coming. My mom, my dad, it didn't matter. I could feel the tension. I knew that I was in trouble again or something. So I would always like immediately just retreat somewhere hide. You know, is when you get used to being a target all the time for being in trouble, it kind of makes you just kind of want to hide.
Yeah.
And that's a Scorpio moon. It's this part of that childhood that we deal with of being the one that usually gets targeted and feeling like we're always misunderstood and we're betrayed. It's hard to overcome, man.
Oh, dude, I actually attribute that to the reason why I feel like I was an NPC most of my life, because I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. I was never allowed to really even have a voice. And so instead of like thinking what I'm going to say next, I would just go into the nothing box and just stay there. That was the safe place in my own mind, you know, like, and just try not even to be introspective. Because every time I started getting a little introspective, then I would have an opinion and I would feel a certain type of way, and that would only get me in trouble. So I'm like, all right, let me just go to the nothing box. I'll be a fucking NPC, which I didn't even know the term was back then.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I was like that. It was just you would just basically shut it down and just go do what you had to do. And I lived like that for years, like a zombie. Like the only thing I did was get up, go do my job, come back home, go back to bed, just numb. If I wasn't drunk, then I wasn't awake. You know, it was like I went through some dark years there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because I got pushed so far down that I felt like it was harder to rise back up out of it. The more I drank, the more it kept me down in that, you know. So like once I stopped drinking, started smoking a little Mary Jane, I started pulling myself back out of it. That's how I got rid of all the antidepressants and all the other medications I was taking and just pulled myself out of that sludge that I'd been living in for years, you know. And it can get really bad for especially Scorpio moons and Pisces. Like they deal with so much emotion, and it's so much of a more physical part of their body to feel those things than other people, you know. So it's hard to experience those.
Yeah, yeah, it's and everybody has their own ways of finding comfort within that. And like how you were saying, you know, maybe you kind of turned to alcohol, and I know a lot of people turn to alcohol, or maybe they turn to drugs. I'm gonna be real with you, dude. I turned into a straight up sexual deviant, and that's arguably the worst of the three, depending on who you are and what you're doing and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just so crazy, like looking back at that, and it wasn't, you know, that's I'm kind of putting my heart out on my sleeve here, so hopefully nobody's judging me too hard. But like, I feel like that is something that, you know, it's like, I'll give you an example, like a heroin addict, for example. Like, it doesn't matter how long they're sober, it's like they still got that little itch. You know what I mean? They could be 5-10 years sober. If you quit smoking cigarettes, like my sister quit smoking for like 2 or 3 years, and she goes, there was never a day that I didn't have the itch to smoke a cigarette. And you know what I mean? Or hit a vape or something like that. And I kind of feel that way because that was always my comfort zone, which is sick, really.
Yeah. And I feel you, man. Like I dealt with that same thing with becoming basically a sexual deviant. Like, bro, I mean, I went through 2 marriages and I was never faithful. You know, it's just I was just doing me, and I didn't have any regard for anybody else because I was so destructive to myself. What did I care? There wasn't anything that I could have done differently back then and still ended up in the same place that I am now.
Yeah, and honestly, I just never saw it as like there was never going to be any repercussions because I didn't believe, not that I didn't believe, it's just that I didn't know that maybe there was a, like a synchronization of the world and the subtle signs that you get. But, you just felt like, oh, well, whatever I can do and get away with and nobody else finds out, I guess I can do it. And that's a dangerous thing to think, because then you're just doing anything and all the things and don't want to be that way. So it's almost like, learning to hold yourself accountable, I feel like is where like real growth actually starts.
Yeah. And there's so much that you can do with astrology and see in those sides of your student. We call it working with the shadow. It's when you start finding the shadow aspects of those signs and you're seeing how you're playing them out in your life, you can start befriending that shadow and pulling it in and saying, we're just not going to act that way anymore. I appreciate you doing your job while you were doing it. And just, you can pull that back. We're not going to do that anymore. It's just, there's so many traits that we pick up that we don't realize is negative until it starts affecting you in a serious way.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and it's almost like how I've really been trying to understand the world as of late is recently we had on Lindsay Sharman from this podcast called Rogue Soul. Huge shout out to her. Love her to death. But I was trying to get like, I'm always interested in everybody else's worldview whenever it pertains to spirituality and what have you. But she was talking about almost like dimensions, right? And basically that I asked her, I was like, do you think that demons actually exist? Or do you think that they're just projections of the inner self? And she's like, well, I think that they exist externally from us, but I think that you're only going to experience them whenever you're in a vibration that, is close to whatever they resemble, right? So like maybe, sexual deviancy or drug use, or maybe you're just like a crazy liar or something like that is constantly putting you into this, kind of deeper, fearful, hateful kind of judgmental state. Then maybe that's what opens the doors truly to you accessing the demons, because that is, what you just aligned with. And that's kind of a dimension of that. And it's a dimension of you, because we all have like this antenna inside of us. Maybe it's the pineal gland. I don't know exactly what it is, but we have this antenna that allows us to reach all these different like broadcasting radio stations. And dependent upon your frequency, that's what you'll kind of interact with. And, so whenever she kind of put it that way, I was like, okay, maybe they do exist externally from me, but the only way that they're ever going to have any impact on me is whenever I'm in that lower frequency. Do you think that same way, or do you think differently on that?
Okay, so first off, you can take the 7 deadly sins and they line up with the 7 chakras. So anything that is variations off of a certain sin, say lust, is going to be sacral chakra. So if you look at it from the lens of metaphysics and how the chakras work, those energies are going to express themselves in your body somehow. Now, if you have negative archetypes that you're working with, i.e. dark moon Lilith, and you don't understand how to express yourself without being a little too much, and your promiscuity is pushing you to be more like a prostitute instead. You see what I'm saying? That's where you're crossing the line of letting that archetype control you instead of utilizing the archetype and controlling that yourself. So in a standpoint of how the archetypes work, you can look at that as a demon, or you can look at it as just being a negative archetype, or the negative sides of the archetype,
Right. Which I guess, unless you're introspective and looking at, your reality subjectively, maybe it would be less obvious unless you're going in, internal, because I don't know, I kind of go back and forth on the whole thing, because Jacob from the cult, he had this whole demon story, and he goes, dude, I'm telling you, it was as real as you. I was looking at it. It was as real as you. I was a little kid on the playground, and it kind of haunted him for a lot of his life. And he is like, dude, I know that nobody else saw it, but I saw it. It was real, 100%. I was having conversations with it. It actually like wore like a skin suit of his grandmother and pretended to be his grandmother until he started to like look at her like it's a little off. Like, I don't know if that's all the way you, and then it started getting uglier and took form into a demon. That's his story anyway. And so, man, I just think that it's so strange that everybody experiences these things so differently. But I find extra strange is that why would little kids be experiencing that? You know, like little kids, are they really partaking in any of the 7 deadly sins?
Well, I don't think that has anything to do with the 7 deadly sins. That children have an ability to see, other levels than we do. Like until a certain age, they start turning it off, basically. But as a small child, you're still really connected to source. Like you don't experience life the same way as you do once you're about 7 or 8 years old, once your programs have been built and you've been shut off, basically, which most children are. Like there's some that skate through and they can still hold on to some of their gifts, and most of us get turned off. We don't have any more gifts by the time we're 10 years old.
Well, you think there's no more need for it?
Well, it's not that. They get shut off because you feel unsafe to express yourself, and then you start seeing things that you're telling people what you're seeing, and they're telling you you're lying. So instead of you saying, well, I'm not lying, you say, okay, I'm just not seeing it. And you tell yourself you're not seeing until you're not seeing anymore. You see what I'm saying? Like we shut them off to protect ourselves because it's not fitting in. We're not getting seen as, oh, that's a powerful gift that you have. Tell me more about that. We're getting seen as, no, that's not real. You can't do that. So don't act like that. Don't tell nobody you said that, keep that to yourself, and for a child, that's like, okay, I'm not safe. Shut it all down.
Damn. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm looking at the 7 deadly sins and the 7 chakras. And so you got, just for anybody, this is my first time hearing this, so I just want to read it to everybody else. But so your root would equal wrath. Your sacral would be lust, obviously. Your solar plexus would be gluttony. Your heart is envy. Your throat is aligned with greed. Third eye says sloth. Wait, what is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of a messed up picture. So you got greed at the bottom, lust, then gluttony, then wrath. Sloth? What the fuck is sloth?
I forget what sloth is.
But then you got envy for the third eye and pride for the crown. Huh. Interesting. Let's see if I can find it over here now. So
Laziness, slow moving.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Also, you can apply the 7 planets to the
7 chakras.
7 sins, 7 chakras, and the 7 deadly sins.
Oh my God. Now, 7 deadly sins, that's like a Catholic thing, isn't it?
That's pretty much all religions, though. It's like they don't use the same terms for it. Like the Bible's got the 10 commandments. They cover all 7. So it's different religions have different ways of putting out, don't do these things in excess, because there's nothing wrong with a little bit of it. It's just whenever it starts getting out of control, it's like you're allowing the sin to control you instead of you controlling the sin, in a sense, So, because everybody's gonna be lazy every now and then. Yeah. Everybody's gonna have a little too much lust every now and then and want to have some sex. It's knowing when to pull back and say, no, it's a little enough.
Whenever you start allowing it to overtake your life, then obviously it's gone too far.
Yeah. And you can experience that, like when you begin your Kundalini process and your chakras turn on, you can experience feeling an overactive chakra versus an underactive chakra. By the habits that you start picking up, you can start feeling it. You can be like, oh, I need to spend more time being creative, or I need to spend more time doing this or that because my sex drive's getting higher. Like if you start going into like, I'm trying to work on celibacy or something like that, and you're really having difficulties because you need to find something creative to do to express that energy because that energy is there anyways. It just needs to be expressed.
That
So
Christos.
it's how you choose to express that energy is what makes it either positive or negative thing. So
Oh yeah, that does make sense, dude. Because I tell you what, the time where I start feeling the most like animalistic, you know, just whatever a human animal would need, whether it's hungry, horny, sleepy, whatever, like any of the things, it's always like whenever I'm doing nothing. You know, I could be just playing video games or fucking off scrolling on social media or whatever, but it's usually that's the time where it's like there's some kind of thing that is rising in my body and it needs to do something, you know? And I think that a lot of people, you know, for a lot of people that's like eating, you know, you're not even hungry. It's just like a hobby kind of thing, you know? It's something to do whenever you ain't got nothing to do.
yeah, and I feel like that's probably got a little something to do with your Mars. Your Mars is in Pisces in your fifth house. Fifth house covers pleasures. It covers dating, um, that general area of life where you're just being creative and like children creating businesses. I mean, anything that you're doing to create fifth house stuff. Okay. So when you're bored, your drive is Mars. It's saying create something. And when Mars says create something, it's saying, hey, we need to create something. I got this energy I want to burn. And you have the choice. You have the free will to choose how to use that energy and how to apply it in your life. So if you choose to lay on the couch and whack off with a bottle of lotion, that's what you choose. You know, it's just understand that your Mars is that controlling source. So how you're utilizing that Mars is whether it's helping you or it's hurting you, you know.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense because there's some times where I'm really bored and I'm like, you know, there's so many hours in the day and you feel like there's not enough and then it feels like there's too many and you're kind of bored or whatever, but in those moments of boredom, there is always something in the back of my mind that's like, especially lately, oh dude, you got to go start writing that book. I've been saying that I'm going to write a book for over a year now. I haven't written the first page. You know, it's
So
like
Pisces is self-undoing.
explain further, sir.
So Pisces rules the 12th house, which is in a lot of cases hidden things, self-undoing, self-deception, deception in general. Like Neptune rules it, so it rules institutions. It rules especially like psychological institutions, prisons, hospitals, all those things. So anything related to those things. So like when it comes into like psychology with mental institutions and things like that. So the self-undoing part is how people end up in there is because they continue down the path of doing drugs and self-harm and things like that. That's very Piscean. It's very 12th house and it's very Neptunian. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So with Mars being in Pisces, you could have a way of doing things that could be guiding you to self-destruction or guiding you to a more spiritual and guided path.
Wow. Damn, I'm learning a little bit more about myself now because that does make a lot of sense. I do have a habit of being self-destructive. That is true.
Everybody does. And everybody has Pisces in their chart. So where Pisces is at in your chart is usually going to part to how that's going to affect you in that area of your life. So like my Pisces falls in the 8th house. So that's more like taboo things, mystical things. It's sex, taboo things like on that side. Like it's anything dark, death, all the things that society doesn't really like to talk about out loud, those things. Plus also on top of that, you add the spiritual context to it, mysticism and things like that. It can be used any way that you choose to use it. You use it for the higher sides or the lower sides.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So that would be all right. So Mars. All right. So we went over Mars. And so I'm looking at this chart over here. Can you explain to me, I don't know if your chart tells you, but Can you tell me what my Chiron is?
Yeah, 12 degrees Cancer in the ninth house.
Cancer. Okay, so that would be my, according to this chart, is my deepest wound. How do you, what does Cancer mean in Chiron?
Well, Chiron in Cancer is going to really point to your mother, and it's going to emphasize that Scorpio moon. It's Cancer usually rules the home, and it's as a container, as a containment. So like it contains all those emotions that you basically weren't being able to express as a child. And your wound is probably something to do with your mother wound and safety and security with your family and the way that you were raised. And a lot of that probably plays into the opposition. It's not a quite exact opposition, but Chiron's on the other side of the chart from your Saturn, which your Saturn's in your fourth house, which is kind of how your father portrayed in your life. And then your first house has that Scorpio moon. And like it just plays a lot of different dynamics into the wounding that you dealt with and how to overcome it. And Cancer is definitely going to be a lot around safety, security, and the mother.
Interesting. Okay. Man, this is all very personal with all this kind of stuff. I love it. I mean, I'm not somebody that likes to hide all this stuff, obviously. I mean, to be honest, on this show, I go way too deep into my own personal life, so I don't know if anybody feels uncomfortable with that, but I'm an open book. I don't, it is what it is, but yeah, that's interesting. And it's so crazy about how your childhood literally, if you would look back at somebody's childhood like this, it can show the projection of how your life would go, which does make sense according to astrology anyway, because a lot of it does seem to be synced into what you experienced in your childhood, and then ultimately that is a projection for the future almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's the snapshot itself says, hey, here's all this energy. It's going to channel to you in these ways, and it's up to you how you use that energy. It's just coming to you. It's going to hit you in this area of your life. It's going to have this kind of flavor to it. Just use the energy where you want to use it, and there's no real right or wrong way to do it. Like Source Creator does not see right or wrong. It doesn't see positive or negative. It just sees energy, and it says, go create. So what we choose to create is really, I mean, I don't see a way in saying that we don't have the free will to come down here and just try to do whatever we want to do and just see how it goes, because some people still say, oh, it's a destined path and this and that. No, you have things that are destined to happen in your life around you, in your environment, so you can experience it, so you can grow. At the end of the day, you still have to make that choice for yourself, whether it's this, that, or that other. We have free will. And I feel like making some choices really shifts our trajectories.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard, and I don't know if this is something that you vibe with, but I've heard that no matter what, everybody lives the life that they were always meant to live. And I don't know if that speaks to destiny or, maybe there's a bunch of different things that could happen, but ultimately you're going to end up where you were always meant to end up. You're going to experience what you were always meant to experience. Doesn't matter if you took the scenic route or the straight path. It's like you're automatic, like you will experience what you were almost destined to experience. Do you align with that?
Yeah, but the path to get there can be whatever path you choose. You're still going to get to the same destination, which ultimately to me is we're all going to die.
Well, yeah.
This human body, I got it for a little while. It's kind of like a rent to own thing. And then at the end, it just doesn't work anymore. So I leave it here and I keep on going. But I mean, there's so many ways that these planets can express themselves in certain signs and houses. So your moon is 9 degrees from being in exact opposition from your sun. And usually, like, I see that sometimes it can represent like a separation between the mother and the father at the time of your birth, or sometime within the future around it, or before. It could be an emotional separation or a physical separation kind of thing. So how did that affect you?
Oh my God, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, I never met my real dad.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So whenever I say my dad, he's my stepdad. He's been there ever since I was a baby. But like my real like biological dad, I've never even seen a picture of him. And from what I hear, my mom married him and I guess was I don't know, I guess he was just a kind of a low life individual and didn't want to bring that around a baby and to the family and stuff like that. And so yeah, I never really even heard much about him because everybody was always like, "Oh, we don't talk about him." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess that's whatever it is." But yeah, that's strange that the chart would show that.
well, I was waiting. I was going to get to it, but Neptune's in your third house, which is not far from your IC. Also would point to either a step parent or step siblings.
Well, I do have. I mean, my brother and sister are both my half brother and sister. Like I'm the only one from my mom and my biological dad,
Yeah.
and my brother and sister are both from my technically stepdad.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like Neptune falling in third, fourth house area, like it's going to bring up hidden things, and if it falls in the family part, it's not something that's actually hidden. It's more like unconventional. So like having step parents, having step siblings, things like that. Also having Uranus there can also be unconventional that way. You have Neptune and Uranus conjunct, so it kind of plays into the life that you grew up in of having a, a family that was different from the societal norm, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's not so different nowadays. I mean, everybody got, several baby daddies and baby mommies, and I'm no different from that. I got two baby mamas, and I've only ever been married once, though, so I'm proud of that part.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like my Uranus falls in my fourth house, which is unconventional ways of living at home. And I've been married multiple times, and also grew up in a family where it was unconventional. I had step parent, I had step siblings, so yeah.
Interesting.
Then
Damn, I
there's
didn't know that the chart would be showing this kind of stuff. That's wow.
man, there's so many layers. I'm scratching on the surfaces right now, but like the more I could sit here and talk to you about it, the more I could dig into it, the more layers we could dig into, and it just goes deeper and deeper. You just spiral down into it, and until you find like core wounds. Like it's wild.
Open me up, baby. I'm ready.
So Mercury in Taurus in retrograde, and it is conjunct your sun. You know what conjunction is, don't you?
That means like opposite.
No, conjunctions when they're connected, they're next to each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I
it's
don't know all these terms.
combined energy.
Oh,
So
okay.
with the sun and Mercury being right there, the sun is like kind of like your egoic side, but also your personality expression in that fashion. So you take your Scorpio moon emotional side, and then you put a bullhead on like a Taurus, and then you express yourself through the world. You know what I'm saying? So you have to the moon is the emotional core of the person. It's how the personality is built, because that's where the ego, the sun, starts building walls to protect the moon.
Oh, I never heard it put that way. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
Scorpio moon, maybe that's why. I've always kind of like, I don't know about Taurus, like I feel like maybe I'm a little stubborn, but like you always hear about Tauruses are always so grounded and so stable, and I'm like, fuck, I'm nothing like that.
Well, that Scorpio moon is more than likely a big issue for you to be able to stay grounded. So like you need to spend a lot of time by water, take baths and things like that, salt baths and stuff, to stay grounded if you can't get outside. Being outside can ground you. You need water too because you're a Scorpio moon. And when you have a Scorpio moon, that's kind of like how you nurture it. Like for me, it is anyways. Like I get in a bath and I feel like I'm back in the womb, and it's like my safe place. I can meditate in the bath all day. I can do yoga, whatever in the bath. Like it's comfortable. It's like home to me again, you know.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So I was born in Lake Havasu City, and Lake Havasu is in Arizona, and it's
Mhm.
like it's a big lake, but it connects to the Colorado. But we always, that's my parents live out there and everything, and every time I go out there, I'm like, oh, finally. I'm just by the water, I'm by the beach. I mean, I know it's a lake, but it's more like a beach, you know?
Yeah.
And even me and my wife, like our favorite place to go. I mean, it's a little ghetto, but we love some Galveston, bro. Like we go to Galveston as often as possible, right down to the beach. I always want to bring the kids out there, and that is really where I feel like I can just breathe the most. So it makes sense that because that's some people don't like going to the beach. I'm like, dude, that is home for me.
Yeah, I enjoy being at the beach. Like, I don't like sand that much, so like, I don't mind getting in the water, and I don't mind sitting in the sun, and I don't mind just having fun. I just don't like too much sand. Like, it gets everywhere, and I can't get rid of it. It violates my autism. My OCD kicks in, and I'm like, it's got to get clean. It's got to get clean. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Next thing
other
you
than that, I'm
know,
fine.
next thing you know, you're a character on SpongeBob, and your name is Sandy Cheeks. You know.
Yeah. Also, so that Scorpio moon, like I said, is almost conjunct Pluto. It's a little outside of orb, but it still has enough. It's close enough to have an effect on it, which Pluto is going to give you a little more of an extremative side of a little bit of control, a little bit of power, a little bit of I want things done my way, and you can get a little bit manipulative. The moon is the one though that if I don't want to say all Scorpio moons, but I'm gonna say there's a good portion of Scorpio moons who are narcissists and probably don't know it. And
I try not to be, but I know that to be at least a little bit of the case.
I will tell you right now, it is Scorpio moons are investigators naturally. They grew up as a child learning how to feel out emotions and how to see and read rooms and read people to make sure their safety is always prioritized. So the way we view the world, we're like detectives walking around, we're investigating everything, and we're making sure that our protection is 100% secured at all times. If you set off an alarm, the whole system goes down, goes up in smoke, the walls come up, and we're ready for war. We've
Hmm.
learned how to protect ourselves with words.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, that is true. I do get very dangerous with words whenever I'm pissed. So yeah, that's what I hear actually. But I don't know. I think that yeah, I guess it does really all stem from childhood. But obviously even further than that, like the friends that you have, and that's still coming up in that zone where you feel like you still got to protect yourself. If somebody's talking shit to you, you're not going to let them win the battle. Like, and so, I've never I've always gone with this mentality that I don't agree with eye for an eye. Like, if you take my eye, I'm chopping your head off. Like, that's where I want to go with it.
And that would be a expression of Pluto in Scorpio. It's also the Chaldean ruler of Scorpio is Mars. Before they saw Pluto with a telescope, Mars was the ruler of Scorpio. So you have the Martian aspect of Scorpio too, which is also very aggressive. It's I don't I don't look for trouble, but if you set my alarms off, you've already found trouble. And because I carry trouble with me, it's like it's always with me. So if you want to find it, it's there. Just give me a second. I'll pull it out of my backpack and we can have a good combat real quick. It's
Yeah.
the Scorpio moons. It's all about protection, man. And the way their mind works is sneaky. It's very, very sneaky.
There's a lot of different programs that are going on in the back of my head at all times. That's what
Yeah.
I feel like. Like I'm always, I don't want to, I think scheming is the wrong word. I think
It's
that
it's it's pre-planning.
yeah, I'm like, I'm
You're planning
always,
for things that might not ever happen, but you're planning for them.
but if they do happen, I got a game plan.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah. I do find myself thinking about that all the time, actually. I need to stop doing that though. The goal is to stay present. You don't want to always be planning your whole life.
Well, you learn how to pull away from it, and I've gotten it to where I can keep it kind of pulled back to where it's like I'm planning things at the same time. They're like not that far out in the future, or they're not weird, crazy things I shouldn't be thinking of. I'm trying to stay focused on specific things that need to be planned. And it took a while to reel that back in, because that it used to be more focused on deception and maneuvering, and how can I maneuver my way around to this situation so that I can sneak around with that person to you get what I'm saying.
Always trying to find a shortcut to something. I
Well,
always for example, my dad, I've always said, and he'll agree, that he's Italian, right? But he goes, I'm really a Jew at heart. Like, I just want to try and get as much as I possibly can. Like, I want to get away with. And I'm like, I think that's good. If you're pinching pennies, you want to try and get as many coupons as you can. That in that instance, it's probably fine. But if you're always looking for a discount of this, or how can I get away with that, it's like it becomes almost who you are, and then it starts portraying itself into your real life. Like, you almost start treating people like that, and maybe you start treating your wife like that, or your kids like that, and it starts to spill over. So yeah, I try and get away from that.
yeah, man. I mean, self-awareness is a key. It's
Yes.
it's all it is to it. And doing astrology, it really just helps you focus on the self-awareness, because once you make it become conscious to yourself, you're like, I see it right there. This is what that means. I have that possibility for that energy to be in my chart. I see it playing out in my life. I am aware of those actions. I can correct them now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing. That's what why I've always found such an interest in astrology, especially people who know it very well. I'm like, all right, I need to try and just soak it all up, because I think that it is really important to understand maybe what some of your shortcomings are. And especially if they're like very obvious like that in the chart, it's like, all right, well, there's no disagreeing with it. That's just who you are, and maybe start to apply it to yourself and see how it does apply to you. And then you can start to work on those aspects and become a lot more aware of it. But I think that there's probably many people out there that are just like, I am who I am. That's just what I am. I was born a bitch kind of deal. And I'm like, you can actually work on that. You don't have to be a bitch your entire life.
Well, you can learn how to channel that energy in a healthy way. That's the key, is to be able to channel the energies that you're receiving in the healthiest way possible, which is authentic expression.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think authenticity. They say that is actually the highest vibration you can be, is authentic. Like,
Yep.
even more so than love and all that.
Yeah, I mean, love's high up there on the spectrum, but they say authenticity is pure energy. It's pure creation as you're living it. So, like, I don't think there's anything more pure than that.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes sense to me.
that's probably how you find your flow state the easiest, is by being authentic.
Yeah, and present. When you pull yourself in and you're fully present and you start finding that flow state, I think it's damn near impossible to be inauthentic.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're onto it right there.
It's authenticity in that state is like, it's like I said, it's pure. I don't see how you could be anything different than that in that flow state.
Yeah, I agree, because you're not going to be able to be deceptive while you're in a flow state. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. Those are two different ends of the spectrum, I feel like.
No, and there's a very vast difference between being present and in flow state versus being present and in detective mode, trying to create this chaos over here in this side of your life, where you're having a phone conversation that's chaotic and stuff like that. You can't stay present and find flow state if you're in that state, because you're distracted. And the only way to find flow state is to have a particular purpose and singular focus.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. That's for sure. Anytime I've ever gotten into a flow state, like in my instance, whenever I'm the cases that I found flow states is by doing something that I really love to do or talking about something that I really love to talk about, and it's almost like time doesn't exist and everything's flowing very smoothly and you are the utmost present that you could possibly be, and it's almost like your energy is shining the brightest in those moments, it feels like. And you can tell with other people too, whenever they're entering in that state as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So all right, any more secrets we gotta know about me today?
Let's see. Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house. So Jupiter naturally rules the 9th house. That's Sagittarius's house. And yours is actually ruled by Gemini. Your Jupiter falls in Cancer. So you have a loving communication or loving way of communicating your higher knowledge and ways of understanding things from different aspects. And the way you share that, it's like you speak to like your family in a sense. It's like you're trying to help your own family out. The podcast is the way you do that in a sense. It's your midheaven also falls in Cancer, your 10th house cusp. So, it kind of points to like the way you present yourself to the world and you shine,
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I vibe with that. Dude, this is awesome. And I feel like dude, I've learned so much from you just with all the hours and all the days that we would spend over at the crystal shop over in Christie's, and there'd be days where we'd just like chill on the couch. And we always called it the casting couch, but it was like because it was just two dudes and one big couch. It was just silly. But there would be times where you'd pull out, dude, you're actually the person who introduced me to the book, The Secret Teachings for All Ages by Manly P. Hall. And then was it yesterday or day before, like a couple of days ago, I had on Ronnie Pontiac. Ronnie Pontiac was the understudy to Manly P. Hall. And like, he was like, I don't want to say he was Manly P. Hall's assistant, but almost like that. Like he was working directly with Manly P. Hall, and Manly P. Hall actually like helped him and his wife get married. He married them off. I'm like, wow. Oh my God, this is like a living fucking legend right here. And, and he just came on a few days ago, and unfortunately his wife just died. And, it's real, obviously it's real sad. Like he had a super connection with her, and it was just like, it was pretty hard. But one of the things that I love about it is that the way that he was able to look at her passing almost like finding universal meaning. And he's like, he knows that he's connecting with her even still on the other side, because she'll send him little messages, and it's like the most personal message ever. And like things that it was only an inside joke between them. And then he'll get like one of her old friends reach out to him, and she's like, oh yeah, your wife reached out to me the other day. She wanted me to give you this message. I don't know if it means anything to you. And then she says the message, and Ronnie's like, how would she know that? Give you a little example. So he was talking about how his wife would always leave this fan on, and supposedly there was like a bunch of callbacks for this fan. Like, I guess it was dangerous and you should have turned it back in or threw it in the trash because it was always malfunctioning or whatever. But she loved that fan. She always wanted to have the fan on, and Ronnie would he's like, yo, this thing's fucking malfunctioning, and people have talked about like their house is catching on fire or blowing up as a result of this fan. And she would always like walk out the room and the fan is still on, and it would stress him out. And he would go into like this mode where he's like frantically trying to turn this fan off. And his wife would always say, oh, you know what? You're being a Mildred. And that was his way. Like, that's just what she always called him as a result of that. And so whenever the friend said that I got a message from your wife, I don't know if it pertains to you, the message was, just remember that I'll always love Mildred. I'm like, oh my God, it was an inside joke. Nobody else knew about it.
That's funny.
That's just the craziest thing. But it takes somebody like Ronnie Pontiac, you know what I mean? Like a guy who is an understudy of Manly P. Hall, all the secret occult teachings, and, just amazing that that guy is having these experiences now, you know, towards the end of his life. I mean, I think he's not super old. He's probably, is he in his 70s? He's getting up there. Really, really still sharp though. Like Tharp is sharp as a tack.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Like, so, like, I've been waiting patiently, and I've checked my mailbox a few times. I'm still waiting for my book to come in the mail. I'm not sure if you're ever going to send it back to me or not.
Which one?
The Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Oh, is that actually yours?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'd let you borrow it at the shop, and I never did get it back. I was like, man, I guess he got to a new book, so I bought me a new copy.
Wow. And no, I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't know that it was yours. I thought it was the shop's, and I was like, well, you know, me and Christy had a little falling out, and I was like, that's my book now. That's honestly what I thought.
I ain't even mad at you. It's fine, man. Like, it ain't that serious. It's not like I was in the middle of reading it or something like that. It's just, it's one of those books that you want to keep around. So you just grab it every now and then, open it up, and see what it's got to tell you. You know, it's got information in there that is just like, it's profound. Some of the information that he put in there, like, it's wild.
Oh yeah, and you know, there was a couple of episodes that Sean and I did where we would read some of the chapters and really try and get a decent understanding of some of them. And some of them, you know, even if you're early in your spiritual, philosophical kind of understanding, you can start to understand it. But then there were some other chapters where we were like, dude, it was like reading fucking, Chinese. It was like, made no sense because we didn't know what this stood for and what that stood for, the history of that, or the names of these people. It's like completely foreign. But yeah, it just goes to show that book is deep. You know what? I didn't know that was your book. You tell me the next book that you're interested in buying, I'll buy it for you.
Oh, you don't want to know that one. Have you heard of Chase Hughes?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen his behavioral manual?
Is that newer?
Yeah, it's the behavioral ops manual he put out. It's on Amazon. It's like $184.
Cool. All right, not that much, but I'm just a podcaster. That's all I do for a living.
I ain't worried about it, man. It's fine. I've been really getting into Chase Hughes, so a lot of like understanding psyops and understanding how to communicate in effective ways and things like that, like, is very interesting, and he's very knowledgeable, and like, there's just so much information, and
he really is a wizard, man. And it's so strange too, because he was like in the military for a long time too, wasn't he?
He was in the Air Force.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't done like a lot of research on him, but every time I see a video of his and he's talking, I'm like, dude, this guy sounds way smarter than me whenever he's talking. That's for sure.
So he's got a book called Tongue, and it's a cognitive hazard. And whenever you start reading it, it causes so much cognitive dissonance in your brain because the words just don't make any sense. You just keep reading it because you're kind of addicted to it. You get a dopamine hit from it because it's so awkward. It makes you like kind of feel like you want to twitch because it's so uncomfortable to read it. After you get through it a little ways, you can't put it down.
Really?
And he takes it, and he's basically hypnotizing you into learning how to speak in patterns with rhythms and choose words differently and think differently. Like, it's a powerful book. And it's like a 4-hour read.
That dude's a fucking genius, man.
He is. That book, man, that book had me tripping for a while, bro. I was just like, I can't get over how it just made me think differently for like at least 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, my mind was boggled. I was thinking so differently. Like, I was creating all these new neural pathways, and like these little things would connect over here. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm over connecting things. Like, it literally made me go supersonic for a couple of weeks, like with just connecting dots and putting information together.
I don't even know where you would get an idea to write a book like that. That is interesting.
You should check that book out. I think you would be amazed at when you start reading it. Just like, this makes no fucking sense whatsoever, but it feels so wrong to stop reading it.
Back. Man, 432 hertz always causes like serious introspection. I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, or maybe that's just meditation in general, but 432 I've always found to be like, at least for me specifically, like going and being with myself, if that makes sense. I had the strangest sensation in there to where I was just like, oh, I miss this. Like I said, I miss you. Like just who I am in meditation. I just feel so much more whole in there. You know, it's like your own womb. So strange to even say it out loud. But it was what was even stranger is that I said, I miss you. And I heard like a little piece of me say, I miss you too. And I'm like, what is going on here? It's really strange, but I don't know. Weird shit happens in meditation. I actually got a bunch of visuals for that one. And I was almost like kind of experiencing it subconsciously until I realized that there was a picture that was playing in my mind. And I guess why it didn't really catch my attention so much was because it was not, you know, dangerous or anything like that. It was more of just like watching something flow by, and I realized that I'm seeing like variations of colors of orange and red, and what I noticed is that I was like watching like a lava river flowing. I don't even know why I thought about that, but it was like playing in the back of my mind. And that meditation, you know, it sounded like it was portraying like a giant whale or some dolphins or something like that. So they were in the ocean, but you would think that I would go water, but for some reason in my mind, it was like lava water or like lake of fire or something like that. But it wasn't necessarily like a scary thing. It was almost like I was seeing like hell is calm right now. That's kind of like what I got from that. And whatever my connection to hell may be, hell is probably archetypal anyway, but what does that mean inside me? You know, and obviously hell would be representative of, you know, your lower vibratory states and, you know, deceptions and making wrong moves and being more, I don't know, just doing the things that you're not meant to be doing. That's going to put you in a lower vibration. That's kind of what I associate with hell. And seeing that, it was almost like, oh, hell's pretty clear right now. Almost like saying that I'm like right now I'm vibrating above it. So my view of hell is that there are no demons. There are no, you know, little heathens or whatever down there that's going to be messing with me or anything like that, because I'm just not vibrating at that level. And I'm not saying that like I'm far from enlightened, far from it. And it will always be a goal that I try to attain. But it's where I'm at right now in my life. I'm happy, you know, I'm comfortable. I'm where I want to be. And so maybe whenever you kind of tune into those levels, if you're not resonating with it, maybe you only see it for what you resonate with, which is kind of a crazy thought, that you could see hell, but it not be hellish. You know, maybe the same landscape, but no entities there. I wonder if that has anything to do with the astrological alignment. Yeah, Adam is one of my old buddies. As I said, I met him over at the crystal shop that me and Jacob that's where our studio used to be, in the back of that crystal shop. And man, I just love talking to him because he was always just so into, you know, spirituality and the occult, and like I just love talking about that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it was really cool catching up with him. I'm surprised it actually took that long for us to do another show again, but yeah, that guy is very interesting. if it wasn't for him, maybe I'm not in this position right now. Like, that's how kind of serious that is. I mean, I think that I had already started Meta once I had met him, but I don't know. I can't remember. That was years ago now. Oh, no, maybe I didn't start Meta. No. Because I didn't start Meta until after I was at Christie's. I don't know. Time is an illusion. I can't remember when, what started, when, that whole deal. But yeah, hopefully you guys really enjoyed that conversation. I know that it was kind of personal to me, but the reason he wanted to do that was because he wanted to show how accurate he could be by using me almost as like the test subject. And so I was like, yeah, sure. I'm an open book with all of it. And so it was really strange seeing how everything just lined up like that. So cool. Like, how are stars going to tell you who you are if you're not part of them? If anything, it makes me feel closer to the stars and to the sky and to the cosmos and everything else, knowing that my story was pre-written. And not necessarily everything that I'm going to experience in my life, but how I'm going to react to it, what my relationship to it is going to be. There's definitely something to astrology. And I've been saying that I want to learn a little bit more about it, but yeah, I think I'm just going to stop making excuses. I think that it's too valuable of a tool to have to not look more into. And maybe not even necessarily to give everybody astrological readings, but I think just on a personal level, to understand it yourself, be able to look into your chart and look back at it as a reminder, see how it pertains to this day of the year, because it's always changing, of course, as the sky is always changing. And yeah, man, so thought-provoking for sure. And so anyway, if you want to be able to reach out to him, he's really good at making charts and kind of breaking it all down. As you saw, he didn't know a lot of the things that I told him. You know, I mean, those were, you don't necessarily tell people about, you know, personal, super personal stuff like that. But I was like, hey, all right, I'm going to show you that you're right, man. Because he was spot on. Pretty wild. But yeah, he's good people. Definitely go and check him out. His girlfriend, Jackie, also really good at a lot of this stuff as well. They kind of team up on a lot of this. Really good people, and they're always fun to have a conversation with, hang out with, and learn from. And that's the kind of people that we love getting on this show, is people that will, you know, be like kind of awe-inspiring, you know, because you take somebody like that who is particularly really good at one thing. And I just love that. You know, I aspire to be something like that. And maybe that's what I am with the past life regressions. But I definitely hope to expand even beyond that. And so I was actually just looking into this thing, and it's called, let me pull it up real quick. I want to tell or kind of show y'all what I was looking up earlier, because it's, let me see what it's called. The Arthur Findlay College. If you haven't seen a video on this, dude, this is like a legit real life Hogwarts. And you don't have to pay for like tuition or any of that other shit. I think it's over in it's in the UK, but you can do it all online. And I don't have any affiliation with them, just telling you kind of what I found. And they have a bunch of different like spiritual classes. You can learn astrology, you can learn this and that and gene keys or whatever you're into. And you can just pay by class. And it's super interesting. So you can pay per day, or you can pay for the whole course, which maybe it's a week or a few weeks or something like that. And it's super, super cool because you don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for this kind of stuff. And you can get certified in it. So maybe you want to add a little bit of validity to whatever it is you're interested in. And you can take a weekend course or a week course or a 2-week course. And everybody that I have read into has loved every minute of it. And of course, a lot of people like it because it's not super expensive. Because I'm not going to lie, dude. I would love to go to the Monroe Institute. Would absolutely love it. You hear everybody that ever goes, they always have nothing but amazing things to hear about it. Have you seen the price on that bad boy? Yeah. It's like a 3 or 4 day weekend. It's like $3,000. I'm like, who just has an extra $3,000 laying around? You know, I'd love the experience, and maybe I experience it one day. But, and now they have this whole, it's like a gateway voyage. Now, of course, you know, over that 3 or 4 day weekend for the $3,000, like you have a place to stay and they're feeding you and you're good to experience all these classes. It's all inclusive. I'm sure it's worth it, but you know, and now they have the gateway voyage, which is the online version of that. So you can go through all the gateway tapes and learn from some of their masters and spiritual teachers and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of really cool, like, dude, we're turning into Hogwarts. So it's just funny that, you know, we talk about muggles and there's all these fucking Hogwarts schools popping up. Very interesting. Anyhow, we got a big announcement that is coming on the live show tomorrow night. So definitely tune into that one. Who's our guest tomorrow night? I cannot remember. Tim Schur. Yes. This guy is a genius. So tomorrow I will announce the announcement. Big changes coming to the show. Good. I mean, all good. All changes are, you know, there's obviously going to be some silver linings that you want to focus in on more so than the whole of it. But yeah, that's going to be coming tomorrow. So hopefully I can see you guys there. So yeah, that's when we'll get back at it. But anyhow, we love y'all. See you on the flip side.
Imagine what would have happened if we hadn't attracted the magic we had back when we couldn't fathom. Life is a fantasy, not with the vanity, not the way it was back then. So I grab my pen and write it down like a scripture. Mr. Mystic, making hits for the misfits. The show where you don't know what you don't know when it's on again with Sean and Jonathan. Yeah.